Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the last in a really long series of webinars of the new Piano Syllabus 2021 to 23. While we've enjoyed bringing these to you, I hope you have enjoyed them too, and we've given enough opportunity for everyone to attend these webinars. What you heard just now was a selection of pieces from the old syllabi, which will be discussed today. So let's get on with it because we have a lot to cover. And before I get onto the syllabus, I would like to just talk a little bit about the digital grades. Some of this is repetitive because you have attended the other webinars, but there are some people who may not have attended. So I'll go through this very quickly. The exams on at the moment are digital. These are video recordings of pieces as well as the technical work, which are uploaded onto a specialized platform. And then the exam is assessed by our examiners. Of course, everything else remains the same as our face-to-face exams. The UCAS points, the full recognition for all the achievements of the candidates is exactly the same. An important point to share here is that the digital exams will continue even when the face-to-face exams begin. So you will get a chance to choose which one you would like to take. And there are no closing dates. You can do this exam whenever you like. So let's move on now to the syllabus. And before I start, I would like to introduce my co-presenters. With us today is Priya, Senior Academic Consultant from Dehradun, Farida from Pune, and Akriti from Delhi. And behind the scenes, as usual, there is Krizan and Dini, who will be answering all your questions and chatting with you in the chat box. So this new syllabus, which was launched on January 1st, 2021, has the widest ever choice of repertoire. There are 35 pieces per grade, and pieces have been included not only from the 18 to 20 syllabus, but also from earlier syllabi too. There are new technical work exercises at all levels, and the exam book now comes in 2 editions. We'll be talking about this later, and we have ebooks available too. So while we have a 1-year overlap of all our old syllabuses, it is the same here. However, because the 18 to 20 syllabus has been fully included in the new syllabus repertoire, we get the chance to use these pieces even till 2023. The only change is that within this 1 year till December 31st, if you are using the 18 to 20 syllabus, you will have to do the technical exercises from that syllabus. But now when you use it later, along with the 2021 syllabus, you will need to do the technical work from the 2021 to 23 syllabus. Another point here, at the advanced level, the pieces are now grouped into 2 sections, A and B. It is not a free choice from a list, as it is up to grade 5. You need to choose 1 piece each from group A and group B, and the 3rd piece can be from either group. This, of course, ensures that the candidate can perform in a variety of styles. And the balance of styles, as we go along this presentation, you will see, is very important in the assessment. So do keep that in mind. We have the same topics for you today. It's the repertoire and the rationale behind it, pieces from the Young Composers Competition winners, and the balance of pieces, defining the repertoire, and of course, the learning outcomes and assessment criteria. So now I'd like to hand over to Akriti to take you through the first section of the presentation.
Thank you, ma'am. This time, Trinity's piano syllabus contains 35 pieces per grade. This is the largest ever repertoire offered till date. Let's look at why this is so and what is the rationale behind it. Through these pieces, the students are able to access a vast collection of piano literature. This lets them explore a variety of styles and helps develop their overall technique and musicality, which is so important at this advanced level. The students are also exposed to varied musical structures and compositional tools. All this helps grow and widen their understanding, skills, and knowledge of music and the piano. We see the inclusion of music from cultures across the world. This helps the candidates make informed choices and builds critical appreciation of music. Through such music, the syllabus is able to showcase the tonal, melodic, and harmonic versatility of the piano. Having such a huge choice of repertoire empowers the students to project their skills and strengths in performance as well as in an exam setting. The piano, as we all know, is one of the most complete instruments. The students are able to experience character pieces, program music, and dance forms, and use the piano as a medium of expressiveness and interpretation. The syllabus this time also includes some pieces from earlier syllabi. This provides the teachers and students with a sense of familiarity and continuity. The body of piano literature is rooted in a tradition that is a living one. The past influences the present, and the present includes the changes in our world mirrored in music. In a nutshell, no matter your strengths, your preferences, the wide range of choice provided has something for everyone. Let's take a look at where we can find these pieces. So this time, the graded books for the piano are available in two editions. One of them is the extended edition. This extended edition contains 12 pieces, the scores of the technical work, which means you have the scores of the exercises as well as the scales and arpeggios. The book also includes the performance notes for all of these 12 pieces. Moreover, you also get a link to a 9-piece ebook, which essentially contains all the pieces from the 2018 syllabus. So you can continue teaching those as well. And lastly, you get the link to audio downloads for all of these 21 pieces and the exercises as well. You can access the ebooks and audios from the link given below. And a digital book of the extended edition is also available in our ebook store, which contains all of the above. The other edition is much like the books we have been previously using. This contains 12 pieces, the exercises, the list of all the technical work in the inside back cover. The addition, though, is that it contains the performance notes also in the book itself. So a booklet of teaching notes was available with previous syllabuses as well, but this time the performance notes are included in both the editions, and they are very helpful in understanding the pieces. The digital book for this is also available in our ebook store. There are 14 more pieces available in the syllabus. You can get the list of these pieces from the syllabus booklet. And these are available in Trinity and other publications. You can get the details from the syllabus booklet and perform these in your examination as well. Due to the current situation, a lot of us have not been able to access physical copies of books. They are not being delivered in our area. So in response to the pandemic, Trinity has launched an ebook store. So this ebook store contains all of these books that we have mentioned, both the editions of the books. It also contains support materials. So you have books on scales and arpeggios, sight reading, oral tests. Of course, all of those preparing for diplomas will welcome the addition of a recital anthology book. This contains a selection of diploma pieces. The syllabus for diploma is very vast. So all of the pieces, of course, not included here, but it does contain a selection of pieces that you can get all at one place. So all of these resources can be printed and used for the examination in case you would prefer this, or in case you're not able to get your hands on physical copies. For the next section to take over, I would like to invite Priya ma'am.
Thanks, Akriti. One of the most exciting aspects of the new syllabus is the featuring across all grades of pieces by the winners of our Young Composers competition. Coming from all over the world, they do reflect a variety of musical cultures expressed in the form and structure of classical music. These young torchbearers are proof that classical music is highly dynamic, having gone far beyond its original borders of Europe to become a living global tradition. Let's take a look at the pieces featured at this level. We have at grade 6 Epilogue by Huang Su, a multifaceted composer and teacher of Chinese ethnicity who lives and works in New Zealand. Epilogue is the final movement from his work, Tabahi, which means far away in the Maori language. This piece is based on traditional melodic patterns and the instrumental tone color of the music of the ethnic people of New Zealand. Wang Su has very creatively taken all these elements into the neo-romantic style and used Western compositional devices to create a very haunting work. He himself advises rhythmic liberty with quite a lot of freedom in tempo, the use of rubato, the use of the performer's own dynamic shading and pedaling, all to create that very expressive and dreamy feeling of distance. Let's listen. And in contrast, we have at grade 7, Soho by the young British composer Charlotte Botterill. As the name implies, this captures the spirit of the area in London, known for its buzzing nightlife, its cafes, its music, its cultural diversity, and even its dark and narrow lanes. There are elements of jazz here, modal and smooth. There's funk, there's R&B, And really, to interpret this piece effectively, the performer should certainly listen to works in these styles. There are two contrasting sections, as you will hear. The first is the bold and driving one with a swing rhythm, followed by a slower second section with straight quavers, a legato, bass line, and many, many dynamic changes. Despite these contrasts, Charlotte Botterill has used devices like modulations and ritardandos, traditional compositional devices again, to move between the sections, and with references to the opening motive's very distinctive rhythmic pattern, all these come together to bring a sense of unity and a wonderfully planned structure. Let's hear. And we come now to grade 8, where Italian composer Dario Schiara has gone right back into the past for his inspiration. In this piece, Romance, he has shown the influence of the great romantic composers of the 19th century like Chopin and John Field. So this piece is actually in the style of the nocturnes made famous by these two composers, and all the hallmarks of the romantic nocturne, which is expressive of the night and of its mysterious depths, are here. There is the tempo rubato, the tonal boundaries are considerably widened through the use of accidentals. There are key changes and, of course, many dynamic nuances. So plenty to challenge the pianist on many fronts. There's agile and very smooth movement across almost the entire keyboard is required. The pedaling has to be very skillful to ensure that the legato lines are retained without blurring those many harmonic shifts. There is a faster section in the middle, più mosso, and that has to be effectively shown through the semi-quaver triplets, and the return to tempo one really requires a lot of mature and thoughtful musicianship to observe that writ in a natural way. And of course, using the left pedal or the una corda at the end will enable that pianissimo marking to give that beautiful effect of a whispered ending to this lovely, gentle piece. Let's hear some of it. So we have pieces from the old syllabi. So after all that great new music, we have some pretty great old music coming up too. So this syllabus sees the return of pieces not only from the previous syllabus, but from even older ones from 2012, for example. So why have these been retained and brought back? They provide a sense of familiarity, of course. Very important that they give the young performer a chance to learn and play these beautiful works. And above all, they have been chosen because they have proven so popular in the past. And each of them has something of enduring musical value. So let's look at some of them. At grade 6, we have from the very iconic Microcosmos by Bela Bartok, which is a set of 153 pieces, each of which explores aspects of modern piano technique with music that is inspired by Hungarian folk styles. So stamping dance, as the name implies, is a typical peasant dance. It's full of energy, very emphatic and earthy rhythms, and a tempo that gets faster as the dance progresses. It really teaches how to build up an effective accelerando. So in all, it's a captivating work. And every young pianist should have one work from Microcosmos in their repertoire. This work teaches so much, the techniques of control and coordination, among others. Also at grade 6, we have the very lyrical Prayer of the Matador by Norman de la Hoyo. This is a modern piece, and the rhythms of the Spanish dance habanera can be heard here. The slow strum of the guitar is actually projected on the piano, and that really underlines this wonderful ability of the piano to be able to reproduce the tone, color, and the sound of so many other instruments. This work is really important for a young pianist because it teaches great control due to the slow tempo and the finger pedaling that is required. Also, thoughtful interpretation, the projection of the feelings of that bullfighter through this music really aid in developing musical awareness. Moving on to grade 7, we have yet another iconic piece coming up, and that is Assez Modéré by the French composer François Poulenc. It's a famous piece. It is in the perpetual motion format, which is, of course, a very taxing one for anyone to play because it requires tremendous stamina and agility. So the constant movement through the keys, through the chromatic passages, and the driving left-hand ostinato are key features of this work. The legato sound has to be kept, and that is important. The pedal must be used sparingly, and the articulation should always be light. So there are many, many aspects of technique to be addressed in this highly appealing work. Composer himself compared this piece to a stroll along the River Seine in Paris. We move to a different part of Europe now, namely Spain. We have the ever popular Andaluza, and that is by Granados, and his Spanish dances from different regions of Spain are very, very popular in concert repertoire for both professional and amateur pianists because of their tremendous appeal. The piano here again duplicates the sound of the guitar, this time the classical guitar, with rich chords underpinning a soaring melody line. There are dynamic contrasts, there are changing time signatures. Producing a beautiful tone here is very important, a resonant one, which can be well enhanced by really skillful pedaling, and all these things make it an excellent learning experience. And now I will hand over to my colleague Farida, who will take you through the eras and styles reflected at this level just as soon as you finish answering this poll question.
Thank you so much, Priya. Let's now have a look at how the advanced level has repertoire divided within it. If we look at the pie chart, which is slowly coming up on the screen in front of you, we see that the Baroque and classical and Romantic periods were almost all equally divided in half of the repertoire given. The modern and contemporary repertoire makes up the rest. And we see here a balanced and well-divided sections of the advanced level repertoire. In comparison to the earlier pie charts that we saw for both foundation and intermediate levels, the advanced level now shows an overall increase in all the three Baroque, classical, and Romantic periods of music. The modern and contemporary are slightly less than they were in the earlier repertoire of the foundation and the intermediate level, but they still do take up half of the total repertoire. And this shows, of course, the importance of performers and teachers being familiar with all genres at an advanced level, yet having enough choice to do what they enjoy the most. Let's now look at some of the features of music from the Baroque era to begin with. First of all, playing and understanding concepts of Baroque form and structure, styles, especially the dance styles which were predominant in the suites, the dance suites composed by Bach and Handel, the keyboard sonatas of Scarlatti, as well as the fugal style which was popularized by J.S. Bach in his 48 Preludes and Fugues. Texture became denser. There was a chorale style of writing and playing two parts with the same hand, and therefore voicing became very, very important, very often having to be done with one hand, bringing out one part more than the other. Hand coordination for a very good balance of sound and also to bring out the clarity and the texture of Baroque music. Articulation needed to be crisp and controlled, detached feel of passages against more legato ones, and of course, mixed articulation, which was again a characteristic of this era. Control of dynamics, ranging from an MP to an MF, keeping in mind, of course, the limitations of the Baroque keyboard instruments. The use of the pedal was discouraged, and therefore, in order to ensure an excellent legato, smooth and effortless fingerwork had to be achieved. And crisp, clear, and neat ornamentation. Moving on now to the repertoire of the classical era. Clear articulation, which was needed to maintain the shape and phrasing, which was so characteristic of the keyboard works of this period of music. An understanding of key structure and relationship between keys, because this formed a very, very important part in understanding the form in which classical works were composed. Technique to balance both the melody and the accompaniment. The Alberti bass, which was a repeated bass line accompaniment running through a lot of the keyboard works, was a popular device used during the classical sonata. And therefore, it was very, very important to get the balance between hands. Also, in order to bring about a virtuosic style, a good, strong technique was very, very important to make passages of fast moving notes brilliant and sparkly. Cadences, phrasing, rests, these were all very, very important punctuation marks which defined classical form and style. There were well-controlled dynamics. These shaped, controlled, and brought out the nuance in the music and became more popular, more possible, and more effective because the fortepiano was actually now in existence. A good sound knowledge of composers who contributed to the music of this era. These included Clementi, Mozart, Haydn, and Beethoven, to name a few. The original works of the composers of the classical and Baroque eras were very, very important for the advanced level because the study and the interpretation of works at this level are so very important. And that is why we see an inclusion of a far greater choice from the 17th and 18th centuries. Moving on now to the Romantic. The Romantic era saw a use of a lot of pedal. Pianos during this period of music were greatly improved and naturally pedaling techniques evolved greatly. So there was a lot of use of half pedaling, half damping, and of course the flutter pedal. The cantabile style, which was endorsed and popularized by none other than the poet of the piano, Chopin, making the piano truly sing. There was an increased range of dynamic contrasts from a triple piano to a triple forte, handling denser textures. Composers like Brahms and Rachmaninoff wrote piano music for so many more voices or parts, and therefore this increased the technical demands on pianists because balancing and voicing became so much more important. Tempo variations. There was a use of a lot of ritenuto, rallentando, but most importantly, the use of rubato, or robbed time, which gave rise to a lot of rhythmic freedom and license. Ornamentation too became freer and more personalized. And lastly, there was the use of the full range of the keyboard. And the purpose of a pianist was to make full use 100% of the instrument on which they performed. Coming now to the modern and contemporary and jazz. There was an awareness of dissonance and jazz chords that became increasingly obvious in the music of this period. Percussive rhythms definitely overshadowed lyrical melody lines, which were so important to the classical and the romantic composers. But now, percussive rhythm became the most important part of this music. Character pieces gave rise to individualistic creativity and a lot of freedom of imagination. There was a lot of importance given to storytelling as well as to narrative lines. Dynamic and articulation contrasts became much bolder, sometimes almost bordering on being bizarre. There was a great freedom of interpretation. Performers were encouraged to interpret and enjoy the music more than had ever been permitted in earlier eras. Tonality too went beyond the major and minor modes. Modal patterns of pre-Baroque music were suddenly revived, and there was the use of the pentatonic scale, the whole tone scale, 12-tone, and blues scale. This made the modern era of music one of the most popular and appealing genres of today's musicians' repertoire. I'm now going to hand you over to Anjali.
Thank you, Farida. Lot of interesting things coming up in that section. And basically what we are trying to do is make you understand the rationale behind the choice of pieces that are in our syllabus. So we're moving on to a very important part of our syllabus. What are the learning outcomes and the assessment criteria that the exam is marked on? If you look to the left of your screen under learning outcomes, you will find 3 sections. Now, these 3 sections can be mapped really to our exam. The first is the repertoire. The second is the technical work. And the third is the supporting tests or overall performance in the digital grades. So we are going to look at some pieces and try and understand the first section, that is the repertoire section. What is the demand? What does the student learn? And how does he translate that learning in his playing and performance? And what does the examiner keep in mind when he marks the exam? So from grade 6, we have a very nice piece by Natalie Beretta-Green. She's a contemporary composer and a concert pianist, as well as a pedagogue. Now, Natalie is familiar. She has written pieces for other syllabi too. The last syllabus featured the wonderful Mazurka, which was very popular with everyone. So to look at what the learner needs to do in this section, integrate musical skills, learning, and understanding in performance. This one sentence says a lot. It's a short sentence, but it conveys a lot. And we find that at this level, the advanced level, the demand from the learner is that they bring everything together in their performance. So what is important here is the knowledge they have gained, the understanding of what they are playing, and the skill with which they are performing. This piece, called Terminal 2, is written in the style of a contemporary waltz. There is a lot more freedom in it, with tempo, with dynamics. So knowledge of this style, which was actually made famous by Chopin, and Beretta-Green was very influenced by his writing. It's the non-performing waltz or the salon waltz that is what is the style of this piece. The skill required here is to project a smooth flowing melody line over the accompaniment, which is detached and of course softer. So simple points here, but awareness is what is most important. The second section, which we'll move on to after we hear this piece and try and understand the style, will be how we convey this to the audience. So having heard this, we look at the second criteria. Here, the learner needs to present secure and sustained performance that demonstrates some stylistic interpretation. The word style will keep recurring in these criteria and what the learner needs to do, because it is really the most important part of connecting with the audience. So the piece, as you heard, had a nostalgic nature. It was expressive, emotive, and all these elements need to be brought out and communicated to the audience, in this case, the examiner. And we can use a lot of tools and a lot of knowledge to do this. One of them being the sensitive use of the freedom of tempo, the ritz and rubato, which is so implicit in this style. The third section of assessing the repertoire is about technique. The expectation is that the learner performs with accuracy, technical fluency, as well as musical awareness to communicate in a variety of, you've guessed it, styles. So there is a variety of styles in the pieces, and you must convey the correct style in your playing. So what do we see in this piece? We need a balance between right-hand melody and left-hand chords. It's a melody and accompaniment right through. The phrases should be shaped thoughtfully through dynamics. They are long phrases and the bar lines should be almost invisible. Appropriate pedaling will keep the harmonies clear and will convey the mood of the piece to the examiner or to the audience. So the second piece we are going to look at is also from grade 6, but in total contrast to what we heard just now. This is by the Armenian composer Aram Khachaturian, modern. And here one must demonstrate familiarity of Armenian folk rhythms and harmonies, which can be achieved by listening to other pieces in the Ivan series, which capture scenes from the life of a young boy. Cross-staff notation is prevalent right through the piece, so you need to have knowledge of that and a good grasp of the clef changes in both the hands. It's an energetic piece, so the brisk tempo must be realized skillfully, not compromising accuracy and lightness of touch. Let's have a listen to this very, very nice modern piece. Very exciting piece and should be part of every young learner's repertoire. So this piece has a lot of things that can connect with the audience. The feeling of continuous movement and activity must be maintained. Of course, the clarity and musical sense should not be compromised by the speed and the different articulations. The dynamics are wide-ranging and must be controlled to convey this dramatic feel, which is so characteristic in the works of Khachaturian. So listen to other works also, and you will be able to project the style and the musical sense of this piece to your audience. Now the technique, me and the instrument, it is a brisk performance that is needed, and there are many things here that need to be taken care of. Balance of hands, accurate articulation. There is a lot of articulation in this piece, ranging right from SFs and accents to tenutos, staccatos, legatos, you name it, and it's there in this piece. So one needs to take care that everything is played very accurately. Dexterity of finger work. It's a fast piece. This requires appropriate and effective use of arm and finger control. Here is where the cross-staff notation must be understood clearly. It's when both hands are playing in the same clef and very close to each other. So you need to make sure the hands don't get into each other's way. And the busy feel needs careful practice because there are so many technical demands in this piece. We mustn't lose the energetic and brisk feel of the piece. Moving to grade 7, we have a total contrast. We have Lento by Fibic. Fibic is a lesser known Czech composer, contemporary of Smetana and Dvořák. And this piece is from a set of miniatures that he wrote for the piano. Very pretty little pieces, and it's written in a romantic as well as an impressionistic style. So what is the knowledge here that we need? We need to know about both these styles. It's a very expressive piece, and it has only 10 bars, but the amount it conveys when you listen to it is tremendous and enormous, and the emotional intensity must be projected. And the skill needed here to really convey all this is being able to differentiate between the chords and the melody line. Let's listen to this very, very beautiful piece. It almost gets you into a trance, this piece. And to sustain this performance securely, one needs to choose a relaxed tempo with a thoughtful use of rubato that portrays the expressive nature of the piece. The audience must be pulled into the atmosphere and intensity, and you can achieve this by shading the dynamics cleverly. The momentum of the music must be kept up, And there is a lot of cantabile playing and, of course, voicing. And as Farida mentioned earlier, in the Romantic period, there was a huge range of dynamics, right from a double P to a fortissimo. So 10 bars of beautiful music. So let's look at what is the technique needed to play this. Effective voicing, very important. There are a lot of chords with many notes in it. So evenness in the chord playing. Pedaling comes to the forefront. It has to support the phrasing and enhance the left hand octave movement, and yet keep the chordal harmony clear. So it's got to be thought out and very accurately pedaled. There are rolled chords. There are little crushed notes. Skillfully executing these, and of course, controlling and projecting the dynamic changes as well as the accents will go a long way in making the piece the beautiful work it is. I'm going to hand over to Priya now, who will take you through the rest of the pieces.
Thank you, Anjali. I'm sure that by now you are all quite well aware of the criteria in these three areas of learning and assessment. So let's see how we can apply them in the remaining three pieces. Coming up, we have for you a prelude, and it is followed by a prelude. And we are going to end with, yes, you guessed it, a prelude. Three preludes, chosen not because we are short of choice, but to point out really that the form of a prelude varies from piece to piece as well as era to era. During the Baroque period, for example, it generally came before longer or more complex movements. In the Romantic period, it was a standalone piece, and in the 20th and 21st centuries, usually takes the form of a short, open-ended composition showcasing a particular style or a musical vocabulary, and we will be featuring all these periods today. Preludes, do remember, are never long, but here too the duration can vary from 15 minutes to under a minute. And while teaching a prelude, do keep in mind it can have any number of sections, themes, and modulations. So first we have at grade 7, prelude number 8 in G major by the modern British composer Alan Bullard, very famous for his jazz compositions. He has written this prelude is part of a set of preludes he's written in all major and minor keys in emulation of his famous predecessor, Johann Sebastian Bach. And he has written it to project aspects of piano technique and tone color. And knowing this is important. And of course, listening to other pieces in that set is part of the knowledge that is needed in playing this work. So you get to know the piano's unique tone and the range which is reflected in this prelude. A clear understanding of pulse is necessary because in this piece there are simple, compound, and irregular time signatures, and moving fluently between those rapid changes is essential. There is chordal sound as well as scalar movement, and appropriate and skillful application to produce these sounds effectively goes to integrating those musical skills, learning, and understanding. Let's listen. So in this wonderfully bright and rhythmic piece, there is plenty to keep the audience really involved and engaged. There is everything here which can be well communicated through stylish and short playing. There must be creative interpretation of the ad-lib performance direction at the end. There are fermatas in the last section to bring about a real contrast of mood. There are extremes of dynamic range, as you heard, fortissimo to pianissimo, and that again goes towards projecting the dramatic nature of the piece to make it really an appealing one. Let's look at the techniques involved in playing this piece. Of course, there is plenty for the pianist to consider and to follow. And accuracy, fluency, and musical awareness come together in this section. Accuracy is really important when observing the rest values, especially in certain bars. The chords, there are many chords which are accented, and playing those accented chords evenly, achieving an evenness of tone is an important aspect here. There are many things that come together in certain passages, like having a leggero, pianissimo playing with staccato articulation, and achieving all those really requires good technical control and command. Pedal is not used very much, but where it is, it must be skillful and precise. And of course, to keep rhythmically absolutely accurate, those dies must be observed correctly. Let's move on to a very different work now. At grade 8, we have from Bach's iconic Well-Tempered Clavier, set of 48 preludes and fugues in all major and minor keys. We have a fugue and prelude in E major. The integration of the musical skills, learning and understanding in this work, of course, first and foremost is knowing about the form and structure of the prelude and fugue of the Baroque era. Then understanding and projecting those features, such as terraced dynamics, imitation sequences, entries of subjects, knowing what a counter subject is. The polyphonic style needs skill. It needs a tremendous musical skill to project successfully, and that can be done with clear voicing, with the quavers kept slightly detached for clarity, in contrast to the legato semiquavers as in the fugue. Let's listen to part of both. Absolutely wonderful pieces. And what really would appeal to an audience is that they are so contrasting in nature and yet each so beautiful. They must be rendered, bringing out those contrasts. They can be linked, of course, in a natural sequence, but the lyrical nature of the prelude and the very bright and upbeat nature of the fugue both should be presented with a lot of stylistic interpretation. Every entry of the subject in the three voices of the fugue must be clearly and musically brought out as it was in the performance that you just heard. A steady tempo and maintaining that wonderful flowing momentum of the prelude also are important aspects for here, for this in this area. And of course, at all points, evidence of personal and informed interpretation must be there. There are cadence points that should be emphasized. The dynamics have to be put appropriately. And above all, shaping the musical phrases in a way that will really connect with the listener. Let's see what is required here technically. And of course, there is a lot because these works were written to improve and to aid technical growth as well as musical awareness. Accuracy, fluency is, of course, very, very important in all Baroque music. Of course, the application of dynamics is, let me say a word here, because since none are marked in the score as per Baroque convention, certain amount of good informed interpretation again is required here to mark those dynamics and executing the ornaments precisely and with the stylistic flair needed. The scalar passages are many in both the pieces, and they must be realized both with agility and with accuracy. Rhythmic security and assurance is important, and there must be clear evidence of finger independence through a very even articulation. So a good technical control required throughout. We come to our final prelude, which is by the great jazz composer, George Gershwin, known for his unique blending, fusing of the styles of jazz and classical music. This particular composer's works are important to listen to really be able to interpret this work correctly. And there must be knowledge, of course, of the blues scale, but also of his unique style. There is a certain bluesy lullaby nature of the piece, and this piece is very closely linked, in fact, has been inspired by Gershwin's other very, very famous and most loved and performed piece, Summertime. So, of course, knowledge of that, understanding of that will help in bringing out the nature of the work. There is a melody line which must be skillfully brought out. The octaves must be, again, skillfully and appropriately played with the right dynamic control. There is a chromatic movement in the middle voice, and keeping the ostinato bass line steady means that there's a great deal of skill that is required in performing this work. Let's listen to part of it. So appealing to an audience, played skillfully, played sensitively, it can really, really reach out to every listener. There's tempo rubato, there's some delayed entries on certain notes. All those must be realized. And of course, above all, the performance must be very, very relaxed to portray the nature of the piece. There is a melancholy feeling throughout, and that must be sustained. And that can certainly be done with a lot of personal engagement and thoughtful and mature interpretation. Dynamics too must be used creatively, particularly the ending diminuendo. What aspects of technique have been addressed here for accuracy, for fluency, for technical control and command? Legato has to be done throughout, and that means that the fingering needs to be worked out very carefully. The chord work requires a very relaxed rendering. There's an ad-lib pedal marking, but that means, again, that considerable thought needs to go into where and how to apply the pedal. There are some very large chords in this work which do need to be broken up, but that also must be done in a very musically shaped way. Jazz ornaments are played quite differently from classical music ornamentation. They are not so precise, and there is a certain style and flair that is required, and that too must be addressed in really bringing this wonderful work to a very, very appealing and great interpretation. I'm now going to hand over to Anjali, who will tell you something more about the outcomes-based approach to teaching and learning.
Thank you, Priya. Such wonderful pieces in our syllabus. I'm sure you and your students are going to all enjoy doing these. So quick word about learning outcomes and assessment criteria. You did see that it is very important and is being used increasingly now for constructing courses. It creates transparency for both the student and the crediting body. The learning outcomes will be of knowledge acquisition, mastery of skills, or development of attitude or ability. And the assessments are designed to test the criteria in such a way so that the student works towards achieving the stated outcomes. So very quickly, as you answer this poll question, these are important because it gives us an idea of what you are thinking. So do answer as many of you can. We are going to move on to technical work and how we can apply assessment criteria to it. Technical work is all about coordination, control, and accuracy. Here, the learner needs to demonstrate ability, technical ability on the instrument through responding to set technical demands. And this section assesses the candidate's performance in a range of technical work requirement where the learner has to demonstrate instrumental command and control across the full compass of the instrument within the set tasks. So let's see how we can apply this to the piano. Scales and arpeggios, not just a series of notes. These are generally assessed for agility across the entire keyboard. Now, the demand is 4 octaves. Your harmonic and melodic skills, your understanding of your scales and your arpeggios, focus as well as precision, rhythmic and melodic shaping, very, very important. Articulation and dynamic control and steadiness of tempo. So when candidates perform, the key word here is perform scales and arpeggios and exercises, they must give some evidence of musical ability and technical skill. So don't just play a series of notes for this. You need to perform these musically. The exercises are specially composed, and there are 3 areas of technique which are addressed: tone, balance, and voicing, coordination, and the last one, finger and wrist strength and flexibility. Very important, all these 3 areas to correctly realize what the composer intends you to play in your pieces. So that's what the technical work does. Now, we are going to move on to supporting tests and, more importantly, to overall performance in digital grade exams. We all know what the supporting tests are. The learner has to respond to set musicianship tests, and they must respond in a practical context, as well as demonstrate oral and musical awareness. Now, overall performance, which is the 20 marks in place of the supporting tests in the digital grades, demands assurance and continuity of delivery and consistency of focus. Also, the examiner wants to see a demonstration of musical personality, personal interpretation, ability to work within, move between, and maintain styles. So these marks are really important, and we do need to give it a little bit of care. So let us see what the examiner's assessment criteria is. This is available in the digital graded exams syllabus on our website, and it gives you exactly how you can get a distinction or a merit or a pass, and 2 sections are divided into 10 marks each, the first being performance delivery and focus, and the second musical awareness. So let us see for the piano how this can happen. Though this is a substitute for the supporting tests, it has the same purpose of assessing the broader musical skills, which is what our supporting tests do. Now, for the piano, this could mean many things: correct posture, feet in correct position, distance from keyboard, page turns handled skillfully, transiting from one piece to another in a relaxed and assured manner, not stopping, keeping up the flow of the music, beginning and ending confidently, and realizing performance directions so as to produce a fluent and cohesive performance. The second section, which is about musical awareness, is a lot about your musical personality, personal interpretation, stylistic understanding, versatility in projecting the variety of styles in our pieces, clear knowledge of musical structure and what the composer intends, and of course, a very skillful use of the piano's properties such as tone color, dynamic range, pedals, registral range. So to sum it up, projecting music through bringing together all of these elements into a unified performance, and that will show thoughtful practice. These are not free marks. It can be practiced, and it must be practiced so that you can get these marks, which will make the difference between a merit and distinction and a pass and a merit. So before I end today's presentation, just to touch upon resources and support, there is a huge range of resources on our website, and these include videos, blogs, guidance for own composition, supporting tests, and Spotify playlists where you can listen to all the pieces. This is what it looks like on our website, and they keep adding and updating this. And of course, if that is not enough, you have our whole team. This is the piano team, and we are all there ready to help you whenever you want. And you can mail us, talk to us with any problems you may have. So here are the email IDs of the team. You could take a screenshot of this. And today being the last webinar, there's nothing else to share, no more links. Let us know what you want us to present in the coming time, and we will try our best to do that. And before I end, I would like to thank you very much for choosing Trinity. Stay healthy, stay safe, keep teaching, and stay in touch. Thank you very much, all of you, for sparing time to attend.